Hello, I am Sky. Welcome to my channel. Here on YouTube, I plan to talk about multiple sclerosis more than anything, as well as post my Twitch videos and things like that. But today we're going to talk about MS. On a side note, you can follow me on TikTok and on Twitch to watch me play video games if you want to. I want to go over symptoms that I have and can personally explain relating to my multiple sclerosis. So I have physically the most, I suppose, visible symptoms that I have for other people to see is I have left-sided weakness. I've had that for about 2 years now, and it has gotten progressively worse over the last 2 years. At first, it was just pins and needles. Like, if you hit your funny bone, like, not super hard where it, like, hurts, but where you just barely tap your funny bone, and then you get those, like, sticky pins and needles down your arm, I will have those fingertip to elbow, and then all the way down my left leg. Those are not constant, which I appreciate, because it's, like, all-encompassing, and it's really hard not to pay attention to. The weakness, however, is full-time. It is here to stay. And what I mean by weakness is it's not necessarily that I cannot do certain things, because I can still lift the same as I used to. I can still squat as many times as I used to. Like, I will hold my daughter, and it's fine as long as the whole time I'm using that arm, but when I put her down, that's when I get tremors, and it feels like jello. Like, I exercised really hard, and all I did was just day-to-day normal stuff. And my leg is very similar. However, my leg has progressed quite a bit, so I will walk, and my leg will turn to jello, and then it will cramp, and my whole leg will feel stiff. Kind of like when you're dehydrated. And that one is rough. I'm actually looking at mobility aids, which I didn't think I was going to need yet. But I think they'll make my life a lot less stressful if I'm not worrying about whether or not my leg is going to hurt. The next symptom that I have had, I no longer have this symptom, but I experienced it for several months, was chronic insomnia. I would try to go to bed at like 7, I would lay in bed with my eyes closed, and the next thing I know it's 3 in the morning and I'm still awake. Yeah, I don't know what I was going to say. Thanks, Cogfog. Another symptom that I had that led to my diagnosis was an increase in migraines. When I was 9 years old, I started to have migraines. I've had them ever since. And mine are pretty regular. I have them, I would say, like once, maybe twice a month. They're not very frequent. And they're enough, they're far enough apart that I can cope pretty well with my migraines. And it got to the point where it started increasing slowly. At first it was like from 1 to 2 to 4 to 5 a month. And then by the end of last year I was having between 10 and 15 migraines each month. And this was a big one that led to my diagnosis, because it was debilitating, and I was pushing doctor after doctor because I could not function. I couldn't get out of bed. I wasn't able to eat anything. There was no interaction with other people, and it was way too much. Luckily, that has calmed down. I am led to believe it's because I have an active lesion is why I was having those migraines. I'm not a doctor, though. Don't ask me. Another symptom that I have that I think we should talk about is dizziness. And I don't mean like your run-of-the-mill, I stood up too fast dizziness. So I've always kind of dealt with that kind of dizziness. However, this was a lot different, because it would go from, I would be sitting still in my bed, I would blink too long, and the room would spin just from blinking too long. And it would happen multiple times a day. Luckily now it's like only once or twice a day, but it was getting to the point where it was constant, and it was nauseating and debilitating, and I couldn't like look at my phone and read an article. I couldn't do anything that I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Yep. Another symptom that I have that is really hard to deal with is light sensitivity. I can't go outside without my eyes hurting. And that's never been a problem for me before. I've always been the kind of person who really enjoys being outside, especially on a very sunny day. And at this point, I just avoid going outside altogether because it's so painful to go outside. I try to keep the lights off in the areas that I'm in. My house is pretty much painted all black, so luckily my house is pretty dark. And I don't have to worry about dealing with the light sensitivity in my house. Another thing that comes with that for me is a prolonged after image. An after image is whenever you stare at a light for too long and then you look away and that light seems to have stuck to your eye. However, whenever if I glance past a light, I frequently will have it ingrained in my vision for several minutes. So I really struggle, especially with like being in the car and then seeing the sun, even if it's just I'm short, so the little visor doesn't work for me. But if the sun is like right in the windshield, and I see it, then it sets off an after image that lasts forever, and I can't seem to get rid of, and that makes it really hard, as well as it gives me anxiety about having auras because I have migraines with auras, so whenever I get after images in my eyes, it makes me panic that I have a migraine, and so I kind of avoid having lights in front of me at all times, except when I'm at my computer right here. I actually have a light above my screen that I do not have problems with. I think it's because I have it set to a specific setting, and I don't have any issues with that light. Another symptom that I have is tingling, tremors, and numbness, and I don't know if it's called catatonia, but after exercise. So if I were to go for a jog, immediately following that jog, it doesn't happen during the run, it happens immediately after the run, I will sit down to relax, and I will get pins and needles all through my hands and my arms, primarily, and my arms will hurt, and sometimes my hands will get stuck like this. I don't know what that's called. I don't know why they do that. It is not a pleasant experience. I don't enjoy it at all. That one's only happened a few times, thank goodness. But I know that MS symptoms get worse when you're hot, and I think that's why it happens after I exercise, because my body temperature goes up from the exercise, and then obviously I get hot. I have a heat intolerance, and I didn't realize this one was related to my MS, but it got to the point where I really struggled to be outside in the heat. I thought it was because of my thyroid, but as it turns out, it's more likely related to the MS. And each summer, it gets harder and harder to be outside. And I know that sounds silly, but it's like, let's say, for me, 80 degrees is like a normal person's 100 degrees. And where I live, 100 degrees is pretty common. But 80 degrees to most people isn't a big deal, but it is so hot for me. It makes me feel sick to my stomach. I'm sweating profusely. It makes my vision go blurry. I get all of my symptoms all at once, and it is absolutely debilitating. And I kind of avoid the heat, and once again, I really enjoy being outside, and one of my favorite things in the summer is to go to the cabins and stay at the lakes and things like that, and this symptom makes that very difficult. The symptom that I think is noteworthy is stuttering and forgetting words. This one and memory issues. These three symptoms really bother me a lot because I've had a really good memory pretty much as long as I can remember. I used to be one of those people that could remember phone numbers from the 90s that no one has anymore. I used to be able to tell you off the top of my head everybody I know's birthday. Sometimes I will struggle to find a word. You'll probably see that quite frequently. It is my primary cognitive symptom, where I will be in the middle of thought and then I will completely lose that thought. The stuttering isn't as bad as the forgetting things bit. The stuttering only happens with certain words, or if I get stuck and I lose my train of thought, and then I will unintentionally get stuck on the word that I was trying to say before I lost my train of thought. So that one's less prominent. And I don't know if that's MS or if it's just me trying to reset my brain when I forget my train of thought. But it is a symptom for me. My ears ring 24/7. All the time. Another weird one that I have is I no longer get the chills on most of my left side. So typically you'll get the chills from being cold, and you'll get it through your whole body all at once. You'll feel all the hairs everywhere stand up at once, basically, right? Nope. It is very strange to have, like, just an isolation of chills. Sometimes, actually, I will get chills just here in this section of my scalp, and I'll just get the chills, and I'm not cold or anything. I'm just sitting there, and all of the hairs right there feel like they stand up. And sometimes it'll be my whole entire right leg, or sometimes my whole right arm, but almost never is it on my left side. Typically, if I get whole body chills, I will not feel them on my left side either. That's a really weird symptom. And then the last symptom that I wanted to talk about today was I have an overactive startle reflex. I haven't read a lot about this one. I haven't seen it really common with other MSers or anything like that. When it started for me, it was very surprising because I've researched MS enough that I kind of have the concept of what to expect. But this was nowhere to be found. I've never heard of anyone else experiencing this. So if you do, please feel free to comment and help me feel less alone in this, because this one is awful. I will be laying in bed at night trying to go to sleep, and you know, whenever you're trying to sleep or it's very quiet and there's a very loud noise and it startles your whole body and you jump, I have that with the quietest of noises. I will be laying in bed and the furnace will kick over. It'll just make that click, and that will startle my body like someone was banging cymbals together right next to me. And this isn't only when I'm trying to sleep. It used to be only when I was trying to sleep, but it has now stretched into my day-to-day life. For example, I had my lumbar puncture, and the doctor was going to do the lumbar puncture, and so he was palpitating my back before he did so, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to touch your back." And I was aware of it, wasn't nervous at all. I knew it was just his hands, and he touched my back, and I about leapt out of my skin. And it feels so silly because I'm not afraid. I didn't get I knew it was coming, but my body reacts as if it was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. That's my whole list. I probably have more that I'm not thinking of that are not, that I don't really connect to MS. And if I get new ones, I'll probably make a separate video or a new video or whatever, going over my process of MS and things of that nature. I do have a list of videos that I have intended to create for you guys and to talk about, like cog fog and fatigue. That's a really big one. I do plan to make its own separate video about cog fog and fatigue so that I can go more in depth about how hard cog fog and fatigue are, because they're a lot of MSers will tell you they're the hardest part of having MS. And so I'm going to make a completely separate video dedicated to those two things and kind of teach about those. So thank you for watching. And if you have any recommendations for videos you would like to see or things you would like me to talk about in relation to multiple sclerosis, then feel free to comment below and let me know, and I will look into that. Thank you. Bye.